We're so excited that you're here with us this evening. We have many amazing things for this episode, including we're going to talk about the resource, the Harbour, as well as hear from a school that has just started with Renaissance. But to kick off our episode, we're going to go to our comedy correspondent, Adele Wright, for our joke of the episode. Adele?
Oh, guys, did you hear the story about the peacock? It was a beautiful tale. I like peacocks. Guys, what happens when you throw a green rock into the Red Sea? Pretty much thinking it gets wet. Because that's the answer.
Each episode of MRNN, we are highlighting different resources that are available to schools. And one of the most amazing resources to help bring the Renaissance philosophy into your school is the Harbour. And the Harbour is a huge part of what Jocelyn's Renaissance does. And we are so, so lucky to have here with us tonight, host of the Harbour, Mike Smith. Mike, thank you so much for being with us here tonight.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me and for your energy and hype behind not just the Harbour, but Renaissance in general. So I'm hyped to be here, Canada, all the way from Nebraska to Canada. I'm stoked to hang out with you guys.
That's awesome. So maybe you could just tell our viewers, for those that aren't familiar, a little bit about what the Harbour is.
So the Harbour it's an online video resource meant for the classroom, and the resource itself is anywhere from like 3 to, I think our longest is like maybe a 10-minute video. And these are episodes where we cover topics that sometimes are difficult to talk about, in the classroom. So we cover things like divorce or dating violence or grit or finishing strong or the ability to be adaptable or leadership principles or school spirit. We tackle a ton of different topics. There's almost 150 videos that you can pull from. There's this huge library. And so the goal of it was to play these videos in class and then have an engaging conversation with your classroom. And so now that the world has moved to virtual, it's made a resource like this even more important because it's already built for the internet. It was already built to be distributed that way. And so it's so easy to play a video to your kids, whether you're remote or hybrid or whatever version of school you're doing. You can literally play a video, everybody can watch it, and then kids can engage with it either in the chat or they can upload their thoughts in the discussion guides or to you as the teacher. And so we've seen schools all across the country start to adopt it on an even more frequent basis because of how easy it is and how much content is already in there. And so the pandemic was kind of the Harbour's way of just really solidifying itself as that character development show that can just live in the classroom. It's so easy. You just hit play and print, and you don't have to do much more than that. And so for a teacher, there couldn't be, it's so easy to do, and the conversations are great. And we have phenomenal guests. We've had people from like, Tony Hawk to NFL athletes to people who have won, recording artists to just incredible people. Kids are doing episodes talking about, their perspective. And so it's just been really cool to pull from a diverse, inclusive, different group of people to hear so many different stories and perspectives. And so the goal of the Harbour was to create conversations. And now we have this massive library that we're able to do that with.
That's awesome. And, it's like you said, it's great that the resource is available digitally because that's the world we're living in now. But what is it about the Harbour that makes it something that the schools need, especially during these times during COVID?
I think if you talk to teachers right now, they'll tell you that their biggest concern, academically is obviously there, but I think everyone's concerned about how kids are doing emotionally and mentally and how their mental wellness is. And the Harbour is a show that's specifically designed to have conversations about that. And so these videos are meant to have the conversations about the things that we're all hoping, and wondering where kids are. And so I think that it's the perfect resource if you're wanting to have deep conversations about where kids are at, especially during quarantine or during this time. It's the perfect resource for it because these questions were designed for that. And so it couldn't be more timely. And I think it's just based on what the content was about.
And if there's a school that's kind of, maybe they're hesitant about it, they're like, oh, I don't know, is this something that really is for us? Maybe you could just kind of touch on your favorite episodes or some of the favorite topics that are covered in the episodes of the Harbour.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's 6 seasons and almost 150 videos, so you can dig through all of them. But I would say figure out what kind of issues your kids in your school are going through. If they're struggling with things like inclusivity or school spirit or social media drama or whatever issues or topics are relevant to your kids, I would let them decide. And I would literally put the product in front of your students and say, hey, which one of these athletes or actors or artists or entertainers or activists do you want to watch a video about? And let the students pick. I think the coolest part about this product is that if you're on the fence about it as a school, you can always let the students decide what content they want to watch and want to engage with. And so it's a pretty simple product to use. And I think the length of the videos makes it really digestible for kids. It doesn't drown on forever, and they're pretty dynamic, and all the guests are very interesting with incredible stories, obviously. And so, yeah, I would say, like, if you're not sure about it, just let the kids decide. And they're pretty honest about things like this. That's what I would say to any school who is hesitant, is let your kids decide.
Awesome. And now I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but out of all of the episodes that you've done, what is your favorite episode?
That I personally did. I think it's unfortunate, probably because of where COVID is and what happened, but the school spirit episode on showing up that we just did, there's this episode about, if you want to increase school spirit at your school, like, what is the way to do it? And I truly believe it starts when we show up. And it doesn't just mean to the football game or the basketball game, or you show up when people are winning. It means you show up to events and activities that maybe go unseen. You show up for kids who people don't typically show up for. And you show up not because you care about that sport, but because you care about the classmate or the student in that sport. And we were able to showcase a really cool school that the football team spent a lot of time invested in going to band concerts, because the band would show up to football games and the community really rallied around the band, but it was because the football team was leading the charge. And so there was just this really cool story of how school spirit can grow when you simply show up for each other. And we were able to go in and film the kids and the band and the school and the students. And so I think just every school is really struggling with school spirit right now specifically. And so I think that episode specifically right now is really strong, but the grit episode is really cool that we did. It's weird because so many of my friends are some of the episodes, and I love them so much, and their stories are so inspiring to me. And so Davey Muse in season 1 is an incredible episode. But yeah, start with Judgment, season 1, episode 1. It was the first episode we ever did, and it really set the tone for what the series is about. And so, but yeah, season 1, Judgment's good. And then Rooted in Love was the last one that we did right before the pandemic hit, that was shared very widely around the world to schools specifically. And so, yeah, I would either start with the first one we did or the last one we did, and just kind of go with one of those two. You're only as good as your last at bat. So I feel really good about my last couple episodes because they were sweet. And so I'm feeling all right about it over here.
That's awesome. I know for me, it's hard to choose my favorite episodes as well, because we watch them every week with our students, and they really enjoy them. But before we wrap up here, Mike, is there any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our schools with?
I think my last thought would be hang in there. I know that, we're working with young people right now, which is what I do, is what you're doing is especially tough. And I would just say, seriously, hang in there. And I talk to young people a lot about taking care of yourself and just taking care of, your emotional and mental and physical well-being. And I have so many friends who are teachers. So if you were a teacher or an admin or somebody watching this, take care of yourself, because you're important to young people. And if you crash, they go with you. And so really, really take care of yourself. And thank you for the work that you're doing. I know it sucks right now, but hang in there. And that's all I got to say. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mike. We can't thank you enough for taking the time to be here with us to talk about the Harbour. And thanks so much for all that you do for the youth and educators as well across North America.
Of course. I love it.
Thanks so much, Mike. We are so glad that you were here with us tonight and to provide those insights on the Harbour. Next, we have our school spotlight, and I'm so excited to have with us here tonight Dana Ellis from Rothesay Netherwood School. Dana, welcome to the show. Why don't you just take a couple minutes and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and about your teaching background?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Melissa. I have been teaching at Rothesay Netherwood School since 2002, so about 18 years. I'm in my 19th year right now, I guess. And my role has changed a little bit over the years. So I started out as a French teacher, moved into teaching a little bit of Spanish and English. And then about 4 years ago, I took over the role of middle school program leader. So one of my main goals as the program leader was to improve the culture and the climate of the middle school. It was already quite positive, but I just wanted them to feel like they had a little bit more of a role in the school, and that they could give back a little bit more than what they seemed to think they could do at that age. So yeah, I guess the Renaissance was part of that puzzle. That's kind of the piece that we needed to finish that up.
Awesome. And that sounds like it fits so perfectly. So I know you guys are just new to this, but what is it that got you into Renaissance?
The first I had heard about Renaissance was the Kennebecasis Valley doing the book fair. And I love to read, so I went for that. And I had thought all along that this Renaissance thing was something to do with like jousting and dressing up and doing crazy stuff. I had no idea what it was. And then this summer I saw that you had posted on Facebook something about the conference being virtual. And I was trying to take advantage of as much kind of free PD as I could over the summer. And I thought, well, I'll check it out, see what it's about. Well, I was a little bit hesitant. I wasn't sure really if it was going to be anything that I would do in my school, or even if I would watch the whole conference. But the first workshop that I watched was Stand Tall Steve talking about ideas and recognizing faculty and all that kind of stuff. And I was hooked. So from his workshop was what made me think, okay, this is something that I can easily implement that will make a really big impact on our school.
Awesome. And I know you guys have only been doing this for the last couple of months, but maybe just take a minute and talk about some of the improvements and positive things you've seen happen in your school since implementing Renaissance.
Sure. I think the first thing that I took from the program, so I've got my little Stand Tall Steve book with all its little highlighted things. So the first thing I looked at was how we could introduce the new teachers to our school in a positive way. And it would be really tough on them this year with COVID, and everyone would be so distracted on those types of things that they wouldn't necessarily get the intro that they should as a new teacher. So one of his ideas, stick it to the staff, or stick it to the new guy, I guess it was called. I took that idea and made it COVID friendly so that we had pictures of them rather than actually putting sticky notes on them. And they got lots of good advice from the teachers. And I heard back from them that made them feel pretty good to have their big picture in front of the whole faculty so that they could get some advice. And then the next step was introducing it to the students through the Harbour videos. So every Wednesday morning, the middle school has a period called Middle School Skills. And we started off the very first Wednesday with showing, I think we showed 3 that day of the Harbour videos, and then had some student-led discussions that came out of them. And I was blown away by the quality of the discussions. We used the prompts that came along with the Harbour program, and they kind of took off from there and went in their own direction with them. And our middle school ambassador program, those kids were the ones that led it. And those are the ones that have kind of taken the lead on the Renaissance thus far. We also did some thank you days for the staff faculty. So one of those Wednesdays, the kids sat down and wrote thank you notes because they had talked about how it was so much harder for teachers and staff to do their job this year than ever. And so they actually used disposable masks as their thank you cards. So they wrote on the masks and then we handed them out to the staff faculty. One of the cleaning staff didn't even know that the students knew his name and was in tears when he got the thank you note from them. So that was pretty nice.
Yeah, it's those heartfelt moments a lot of times that really, really make it worth it.
It's so easy.
It is. It's so easy. And sometimes it's those little things that we don't even think about. Now,
sure.
It sounds like it's easy to get your kids on board, but how do you get the staff to buy into this?
It's tough because you don't want to put one extra thing on their plate. I think the important thing with Renaissance is that it fits so seamlessly into what we do anyways. And it goes along with what we want to do as a school, that it's not really an extra thing. It's actually easier because it gives us a focus and gives us a direction to go through the program rather than having to come up with all of these ideas and have them coming from all different directions. We've got them so that they're funneled in through the one group, and we have some kids that are passionate about it and we have some kids that can sort of run with it. And so having the faculty jump in is almost just a bonus add-on with it. So the kids really are the ones that run it. It's just a matter of having some staff that can support them in the background, and it really hasn't been tough at all.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's so great to see those student leaders step up and just let them run with the ideas.
Exactly.
Lastly, before we go, I know you guys just started 2 months ago, but what advice would you give to someone that's just starting out or thinking about starting, as well as for you yourself personally, why do you feel Renaissance is important?
I think grabbing one idea, that's the place to start. So whether you just want to show a Harbour video and start with the Harbour program and see how that works in your advisor group or in a class that you teach, or grabbing one idea from the Steve Bowler book and saying, okay, I'm going to recognize the faculty at every meeting by doing this one thing. And then from there, it's going to grow, because you're going to want to do more. You're going to feel the impact that it has, and you're going to want to keep adding to that. So I think having just the one baby step is going to be enough that you're going to want to keep going with it. And you'll see that it's really not an add-on. It's more just enhancing the stuff that's already there that you already want to do in your school. For me, it's been important because it has given the middle school the voice that they wanted to have. We had some students come to me today and ask if they can form their own club. We're starting Wednesday morning clubs in a couple of weeks, and they asked if they can form their own club where they can take the Harbour discussions further and talk about how they really impact the middle school life in particular. So to have those kids want to be able to use the leadership that they felt in those discussions and move them outside of the Renaissance and outside of the middle school skills group was pretty impressive.
That's awesome to hear. Well, Dana, we're so glad that you guys have decided to adopt Renaissance at your school. If somebody that's just starting out want to get in contact with you just to see how you guys kind of started, where could they reach you at?
I am at easiest ways by email. So my email address is just dana.ellis@rns.cc. Dana spelled with a Y. Or contacting the school. Our website is rns.cc, and there's all kinds of ways to get in touch with me there.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dana, for being here. We appreciate you taking the time. And we're going to be doing these school spotlights once a month on every episode. So if you'd like your school to be featured, we'd love to see all the amazing things that you're doing. Please feel free to reach out to us at Jostens Maritimes Renaissance. We'd love to hear from you. And this has been another amazing episode of Maritime Renaissance News Network. But before we go, I just want to mention Jostens Renaissance has coming up educator summits that are starting on October the 24th, which is Saturday, and they have one for the next 5 Saturdays on different topics. And you can register for that at jostens.com/Renaissance events, as well as they're doing a student leadership conference in March for Canada. So watch for more details on that. But thanks so much, guys, and keep making a difference in your school, and have a great week.